Welcome to the Tailoring Talk Show with your host, Roberto Rivilla. I'm a bespoke tailor, menswear designer, and owner of Roberto Rivilla London Custom Clothing and Footwear. I activate your superpowers through the clothing I create and the conversations on this podcast. We'll meet self-starters and creators to learn about their journeys while they share valuable lessons to help you be the very best you can be. Please support the show by subscribing, and it helps so much if you take a few seconds to leave a rating and a review. Today's guest is considered the leading expert in the trading psychology space, having helped thousands of traders all over the world dealing with psychological and behavioral issues that arrive when high stakes are on the line. He's also the author of Prepping for Success, which gives you the 10 keys you need to make the biggest, most impactful changes in your life and get you on the road to success. Tailoring Talkers, please welcome Anmol Singh to the show. Anmol, how are you?
I'm doing great. Looking forward to chatting with you.
Exactly. We're university alumni. So we both went to Brunel, although it was 1.5 decades apart, I want to say.
Yeah, that's right.
Now I'm feeling really old. Although, as I shared with Anmol in the pre-talk, that I'm really hungover because I was at the launch of a Indian whiskey brand last night and feeling a little bit worse to wear for it. I shared with Anmol that... What did I share with you? I can't remember now.
About the whiskey, the testing, the pairings that they were doing over there.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, no. Yeah. So I was at this event and then, usual, people make small talk because they're trying to get to know each other on the table and so on. And apparently someone thought I was 33 years old. So there you go.
That was great. But
Yeah.
I wouldn't have guessed it. I mean, to me, it looked in the 30s, mid 30s.
Oh, thank you. I have a skincare regime. Emma, listen, thank you so much for joining me. I'm a really, really big fan of the show Billions. And is what you did, is that similar to what I can't remember the character's name now, but do you ever watch
Wendy
that?
Rose.
Do you watch that? Wendy, that's it. Wendy Rose,
Yeah.
Chuck's wife.
Yeah.
Is what you did, is that similar to what she does or the same thing?
Yeah, very similar. The only difference is that I also trade myself. So that's the only little difference. Like we still help kind of still the shrink to the traders, but the only difference is that I also trade actively myself.
Yeah. Because I can't imagine the pressure. People have this kind of view of traders that they're very gung-ho, they're making a lot of money, they don't care about anything because why would they with the amount of risk that they take every single day? But one of the things I love about that particular show, and the other thing is I obviously work for a few traders as well because I make clothes for them. These guys, I don't know if it's all of them, but certainly a lot of them that I come across are under so much pressure. We can go into, depends how far you want to get into this, but I've had traders that some of them I used to see in the evenings after trading hours to kind of, and you'd end up thinking you were going to meet them at a bank, but you'd end up meeting them at a bar around the corner. And I can see some of these guys, we're using quite extreme coping mechanisms just to get through their days. And, my heart went out to a lot of my clients that obviously were going through a lot of stuff. So, from your point of view, you must have seen it all.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with this business is it's a eat what you kill business. There's no fixed salary, right? There's no fixed package or anything like that. So there's a lot of uncertainty, right? You don't know what you're going to make at the end of the month. Some months you're, crushing it, you're making millions of dollars. Some months you're losing it. So I think that kind of, uncertainty is what causes a lot of the stressors and a lot of the anxiety, so to speak. And it's similar to a sport. Just like, if you play a sport, you're in form. Sometimes you're just crushing it. You're the best player. The team loves you. And sometimes everybody hates you, right? All the pundits are talking about you on TV, that maybe its career is over. So trading is very similar to a sport where sometimes you're crushing it, sometimes you're not. And I think that uncertainty is what creates a lot of this, self-doubt and anxiety and coping mechanisms.
Yeah, absolutely. But then a lot of what you've explained there, you could easily overlay that onto other things like entrepreneurs, for example. Very, most people that are running businesses, they kind of have that same sort of feeling. If they're not in the business, working away as hard as they can, they even think about stepping away from the business. That's it. They're not getting paid. As you experience some degree of success in what you do and your lifestyle starts to improve, you're always worried about the foundation that you've built that lifestyle on. give you an example. So I was with a client, this was probably about 15, 16 years ago. And I used to work for quite a few people at BNP Paribas in London. And one of my guys who trader, we used to meet in a bar around the corner in Marylebone, and that's where I used to look at fabrics with him, and we'd have a few drinks together, and kind of shoot the breeze and stuff. Because I generally tend to have quite a personal relationship with a lot of my clients. I said to him, "How are things going? How are you?" And he said, "Do you know what? I'm just under so much pressure. Like my wife wants another Range Rover. She's just ordered 6 fireplaces from Selfridges or whatever. They're like 5 grand each. Like, why do we even need these things?" And he said, "I just feel so much pressure. I'm a simple guy that happens to have worked hard in the field that I've chosen, and I'm doing well for myself, but she's just outspending what I'm earning, and I can't keep up." And I could just see it was almost like the pressure was just coming down on his head. How do you start to work with people that are in that sort of situation, that are potentially getting themselves into a very, very dark place? I would guess start to resort to extreme measures, because I've heard stories of people having to even turn to drugs and things like that just to get through each day.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think
Am I going a little bit far off the range here for you? I'm sorry.
no, I think that's a very common thing that we notice with traders, is that especially when they come into trading, we always tell them, hey, beginning phase, keep your job if you have one, right? And then trade on the side, and you could do that in a lot of different time zones. So if you're in Europe, it's perfect. You can still have your day job and still trade in the afternoons. If you're on the West Coast, then a lot of traders trade in the morning, 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock, and then they go actual jobs. So I tell them, if you have one, keep it, because then that pays your bills. So you're
Yeah.
not worried about making money from trading, because that causes bad decision making, right? So that's number one. And then number two, either if you're going to quit your job, then make sure you have like 6 months, 1 years of like runway just saved up, so that you don't have to put pressure on yourself to make money right now in trading, because it's a learnable skill. It takes a little bit of time to get in the consistency phase. So you should have money saved up, so you're not forcing the trades, or making bad decisions just because you have to make some money. And then lastly, similar to the example that you gave, having a conversation with a significant other. Hey, I'm getting into this thing. Things might get a little bit tricky, right? I'm doing this for our future, what I'm trying to build in the next 5, 10 years. But in this 1 year or 2 years, we're gonna have to cut back a little bit. There's going to be a little bit of a holdback. So having that honest conversation, I think a lot of people don't have honest conversations with their partners. They expect them to understand, and then that's where passive aggressiveness comes in from our side. It's like, oh, she doesn't understand. No, you'd never told her. You never had a conversation with her, right? So sit down, have a conversation, let her know what to expect. Hey, 1 year is going to be a little bit tricky. We got to cut back, and this is our budget, and doing a lot of those things responsibly. So I think that's what a lot of people are missing.
Now, Amol, forgive me, and audience, forgive me as well. They're not surprised, by the way, because I've just, obviously in doing my homework on you in preparation for today, and really starting to think about what you do and the types of people you work with. And then suddenly my mind starts jumping to people that I've worked with in the past, from in my role, my capacity, the area of their life that I look after. And obviously I've been wanting to ask you all these questions and start getting into this. Let's talk about you for a second. You are a trader. That's kind of where you started your career. I'm guessing you look like a really well put together individual that's got his shit
Oh, thank
together
you.
as well. No, you're welcome. If I was going to have anyone coach or psychoanalyze me or help me through whatever, I'd want it to be you, because you portray confidence as well. Tell me a little bit about your kind of journey and how you kind of got to where you are.
Yeah, so I was, sitting in my dorm room at Brunel University, and I was like, what am I going to do? And stock market was sort of like the last thing I thought I would ever get into, because I was horrible at math growing up. I just hated numbers, and anything to do with numbers was not something that I was going to be getting into. But then in college, a couple of my people in my dorm room were like, hey, have you looked into the stock market? I'm like, I don't know anything about it, but it's interesting how the prices move up and down. Like, what causes that? And we just started talking about it. And we were watching like CNBC together or something like that, and just trying to figure stuff out. And then a couple of my friends, we got together and we said, there's an entrepreneurship society in our college, right? There's a football society. There's a society for any interest that you might have. And I'm like, there's no such thing as a trading or investment society. Like, that's
Mm.
insane. Why don't you and I, we just start something? And it was just three of us. We started a trading and investing society at Brunel University. And then it was just a bunch of guys who'd meet up once a week and just either talk about a book we read or talk about the stock market or what we learned and just share ideas. And that grew into like a lot of members, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 members. And what's interesting is that university, that society still exists now at the university. Now it's a permanent part.
Fantastic.
And I started it. So I think that's where the bug of trading kind of caught my eye. And I just, read a lot of books, started researching on it. And I got really good at writing articles. So even while I was in my dorm room, Yahoo Finance contacted me. I was publishing the blog. So I started writing articles for them. They used to pay me, $500 or $1,000 an article. As a college student, you're like, $1,000 an article? I'm going to write 10, So I would just skip everything, just write articles, save up enough money so I can use to actually, do trading myself. And they took an online course. It was a company in New York, and they had a prop firm. So prop shop is where they'll give you companies money to trade, and in exchange they'll take a percentage of what you make. So started trading from them while I'm still in my dorm room. Started trading, and never looked back. Kind of progressed my way up the firm. And in 2015, that company got bought out. So that's when I contacted my mentor, who's my business partner now, and I said, "Hey, why don't you and I team up? Like, are you going to join the new company? The company that's been bought out?" He's like, "I don't know. The culture is kind of weird. I don't know if I want to join that." And I was like, "Why don't you and I team up? You taught me. I'm your case study right here. Let's just team up together. I'll handle all the business side, and you can handle the creating the curriculums and teaching traders." And that's how we started 2015. And
Yeah.
Live Traders is still working at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. So active trader, at some point you start to I guess get the qualifications or whatever to then start helping other people. When was the point where that sort of happened? Because you're obviously someone, I mean, look, you've put so much time and effort into writing a damn book. So it's obviously something that really does come from deep within. When did you start on that journey to also becoming a trading psychologist?
Yeah. So it started like in the firm that I was trading for. So because I was progressing faster through the levels, so the company had like a bunch of levels. So first you start on a demo account, then they give you, okay, level one, you're going to get $50,000 of our money to trade. We're going to take 30%.
Yeah.
Then there was level two, we're going to give you $75,000, all the way to level 10, where you get $10 million. So I got to about level 7, where I was trading $5-6 million of the company's money in exchange for a percentage. So started doing that. And then the company said, "Hey, why don't you coach our new hires? Because you're doing really well in the program. You've progressed really fast. A lot of traders are still stuck level 2, level 3. Why don't you start coaching?" So then that's when the teaching, started coming into me. We're coaching the new hires, training them. Here's what I do. Here's what you need to do. And then a lot of the issues that I noticed was not actually the trading itself. Like trading, I could teach somebody trading on a weekend, but can you actually do it? Right? Your mindset, the greed, the fear, like all those things take into place. Or you're being stubborn. The trade is going against you. You're not getting out. The loss keeps getting bigger and bigger rather than you taking a small loss and moving on to the next trade.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I noticed was a lot of traders were lacking. It's not the trading part. It's not the strategy part. It's just that they couldn't follow the strategy. They weren't good at following a system. They would keep holding their losers beyond. Or if the trade is working, rather than selling and locking in a profit, they get greedy. Maybe it's going to go even further. And so they're trading on a whim and a gut feel rather than an actual system. So I try to teach them to become, systematic traders, look at everything objectively, statistically, what is this trade done last 100 times if you took it, so thinking in terms of that. So that's when I started getting into that. And then a lot of people, traders started hitting me up for those type of things. "Hey, could you help me with my trading psychology? I'm struggling there. I don't know what's doing wrong. I took a big loss." And that's where a lot of this coaching comes in.
Because being asked by the firm to initially, I guess, start dealing with all of the new hires and then get them in early doors, start teaching them the right habits to kind of give them the best chance, not only for success, but, obviously to kind of get through this career path as well-rounded, fairly well-balanced individuals. But then obviously the firm must have had a whole bunch of older traders that have been around for a long time, going through some of the problems that we've already touched on. What was it like for you as someone who was so young that had risen through the ranks so quickly? Did the company actually start putting you in front of them as well? Or did the war horses come to you of their own
Both.
volition to ask
Yeah.
for help?
Combination. Combination of both. The firm was making me do a lot of trainings, so they'd pay me to, okay, let's host a training. We're going to have 20 traders here, and then traders would obviously hit me up for like a one-on-one, or starting to take it a little bit deeper, because in a group session, people try to be the best versions of themselves. They don't want to tell amongst their peers how messed up they really did,
Yeah.
right? How much they messed up. So that's where they want to kind of have a one-on-one conversation, and then they talk about all sorts of things. And a lot of times it's have to do with, not having a good conversation with their partners, or something's happening in the household, and that's affecting their trading as well. Because trading, research has already been done. Trading releases the same hormones of dopamine and serotonin, right? The same ones you get when you have sex, when you do cocaine, when you do gambling. Now imagine people who gamble or do cocaine or any of that, they might do it now and again. As traders, we're trading every day, so we're getting those hormone spikes every single day. So if you're not learning how to control that and be objective, right, it's a roller coaster of emotions. It's a roller coaster. It literally feels like somebody punched you in the stomach. You feel like
Yeah.
throwing up, and it's very real, especially if you're risking millions of dollars every day.
Yeah, totally. I know a tiny bit of that. I did some crypto trading, like, was it last year, I think? When was it last year when that kind of bubble sort of burst last summer?
Yeah.
It was literally like the day before that happened. But I was like riding the crest of a wave on ApeCoin and some other stuff. And literally, I had this tube journey from Northwest London to an event in, I think it was near Stratford. And on that
Mhm.
tube journey, so you catch Wi-Fi now on the Jubilee line when you kind of get to about Westminster. So I'm on the tube and I'm busy, like basically moving things around and doing all the tradery stuff. And I turn up at this event. So the first person asked me, how are you? And I was like, yeah, I'm good, because I'm like 8 grand up, like literally on my commute. And I'd never had a feeling like that before. Actually, no, I'd had a feeling like that before from some of the other activities that you mentioned. But then on the way home, so I was like, right, do you know what? I need to sell out. But then I got involved with the event, and then kind of was like, okay, when I get home, let me have a look and see what things are doing, and then I'll just take my profit and run. Got home, the bubble burst while I was at the event, so everything
Wow.
was gone, and that was the biggest come down ever. Now, in the
Yeah.
grand scheme of things, I got over it really quickly because I was playing around with money that I could afford to lose.
Mhm.
Having to do that as a job every single day and go through that roller coaster when the stakes are 10,000, 100,000, a million times higher than what just little
Mhm.
me was doing just on that, tube journey. I can't even begin to imagine. I don't think I could
Yeah.
do it. So,
Yeah, totally.
where did the idea from the book come from? What was the process like of preparing to embark on that project and then actually getting into it? Because you've obviously experienced, lived, and breathed everything that's gone in to those pages.
Yeah. Yeah, so I never actually intended on like publishing or writing a book. These were actually notes to myself, for myself. Here's the 10 things that I need to do in my own life to, achieve the success that I want. So obviously I was the same boat. Like in my first year of trading, I lost money, my whole first year, right? And I learned a lot of the bad habits, emotional habits, all the things that we learned. And then I had to overcome a lot of different messed up things, in my own journey I discovered about myself. So I was attending a lot of like workshops, seminars, personal development courses, hiring coaches, hiring mentors, working with Michael Jordan's coach, and all of those people I work with one on one. And then, I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars like hiring coaches and mentors and attending these even spiritual retreats, going to, different parts of the world, attending different ceremonies. And I was really working on myself. So, but I realized like, hey, not everybody has the money or the time to spend and learn all these things that I learned. So I wrote down as notes to myself. And then one day we were just sitting, a couple of my buddies came over and they just kind of grabbed this. They're like, it's actually pretty good. Like, you wrote it yourself. I'm like, yeah, these are just my notes on things that I'm working on in the next 10 years. They're like, you need to publish that. This is actually really good. It might help a lot of people. So that's sort of was the reasoning behind the book. And I mean, I'm not a writer. I could, it's not my first language either. So I recorded the book in audio format first. So I just basically me talking, just like I'm talking to you right now. And I just say, hey, these
Yeah.
are things we need to do. Recorded the whole book. Then I hired an editor. I'm like, hey, you need to take this audio and just make it into the book that I want. And then we kind of went back and forth a lot. It was a long book, and I really started distilling it down into just 10 things, because one of the things that I noticed is everybody, including me, we have hundreds of books in our library, right? We just buy books because it looks good or somebody sent us a book, but we don't actually read all of them, right? So I wanted a short book that somebody can read, maybe on a train ride or plane, and a couple hours you could finish the book.
Yeah.
And then each chapter ends with like, okay, here's the 3 things you need to do before you move on to the next chapter, right? Because that's a bad habit that everybody has, is they keep reading one book to another book, one podcast to another podcast, right? One documentary to another documentary. I'm like, but you didn't do anything.
Yeah, nothing's changed.
Yeah, your life doesn't demonstrate. There's no evidence that you haven't taken action. So that's why every chapter ends with like, here's a few things you need to do before you move on.
Because I'm thinking about a lot of the concepts that you talk about in prepping for success and how they do translate over to other areas of life. How do you, because you get people that aren't from the finance and trading world, but then suddenly they have someone like you in front of them, and it's kind of like, what the hell do you know about what I do and my life and so on? How do you kind of take them and start to sort of bring them back down on a level where they can be open to sort of listening? Because the concepts that you talk about in prepping for success, I see straight away as an entrepreneur. I can totally relate those things and see how I could take those 10 things and actually set myself on the right path. But how do you deal with people that are from outside of your normal world?
Yeah, I think majority of the readers, actually, the reviews that I've seen on Amazon are not traders. They're not investors. So they've been able to apply that to their life, because these are very fundamental, foundational concepts. And it's nothing that you probably haven't heard of before, right? Like, and I start off the book with, there's nothing new here. Like, you already know it in some form or the other. You've read it some form or the other. But the goal of this book is to distill it down into just 10 things, like a framework that you can actually start doing, because common sense is not common practice, right? And a lot of people say, oh, I'm very knowledgeable. I'm like, no, because knowledge is when you can do it, right? So knowledge is not knowing something, it's when you can do and apply something, right? Otherwise, it's just information. And that's what a lot of people have. A lot of people have a lot of information. They don't have knowledge, right? Knowledge will show evidence in your life of you having applied that, right? There should be demonstrable effect that you're taking action on it. So one of the keys in the book I talk about is integrity, is do what you said you're going to do and do it when you said you're going to do it, right? I mean, just think about how much our quality of our life would be so much greater if we did every single thing we said we're going to do, and we did it when we said we're going to do it. And then, some people would come and say, but I'm a person of integrity, Anmol. Like, I'm a person of integrity. I'm like, really? When's the last time somebody called you and you said, hey, I'm just in the middle of something, let me call you back, and he never did? Right? Or maybe you ran into an old friend at an airport or the mall. You're like, hey, good to see you, buddy. We should totally catch up. And then you make no effort to ever catching up with them. So those are lack of integrities, right? Because you say something that you don't want to do, you don't mean. Why you're saying that? Where's that coming from? You're just saying it to, why are you saying that, right? So paying attention to the words that are coming out of your mouth and making sure you really mean them, right? Otherwise, don't say it. So I try to be very conscious of the words that I'm going to be saying, because I never want to say something that I'm not going to do or follow through on, because that goes into your unconscious mind. And then the unconscious mind is like, this guy's full of shit. He says he's going to do something, he's not going to do it. Now, so if you don't believe in your own word, how do you expect your customers? How do you expect your clients? How do you expect the universe to believe in you?
Absolutely. And that, I think that follows on from, something that, a lot of us really need to work on, which is working out what is our authentic self. Because very often when we are in that situation where, you catch someone and you say, hey, we'll catch up, or I'll call you back, or whatever, and you don't really actually want to talk to that person or see them ever again, right? There's a reason why you ran into them after so many years at the airport, wherever it was anyway. And very often it's because we haven't done any work on working out what our authentic self is, what our values are, what we believe in, what we do and don't like to do, the type of people that we, like to interact with, like to hang around with. And when we haven't worked that out, then that translates to when we're in situations, we knee-jerk react and we say things that we don't mean, and we make commitments that we've got no intention or no capability of ever keeping. Is that something that you talk about in terms of authenticity as well?
Absolutely. Because your word is everything. Because what happens in your brain, neuroplasticity is like, when you say you're going to do something and you don't follow through, then that leads into brains like, oh, he's full of shit, he's not going to do it. That leads into low self-esteem, that leads into low self-confidence. It's like a vicious cycle that just keeps going. So now what happens is, in your life, when you try to do something else, you say, hey, I'm going to do this in my business. You unconsciously, your brain's like, you're not going to do it, right? Because you already said other things 10 times you don't do. So then those things lead into a lot of low self-esteem, low confidence, and that's what creates these coping mechanisms and these habits people get into, because they're internally, they feel bad about themselves. They might not admit it. That's where people pick up drinking habits and, alcohol and, drugs, is because unconsciously they're not feeling good with themselves, because they know they're not living a true to their word. If you're not living true to your word, like, it has a very detrimental effect on your psychology. And I could tell you that firsthand, because I used to do that, right? I used to say a lot of things I'm going to do and I didn't do. And you don't feel good. You feel a little guilt inside, or that self-doubt or self-confidence. So I think those things, overcoming that and coming back to, okay, authentic self, true self, integrity, right? Being a person of integrity, and then looking at every decision you make in your life from that lens. Right? Is that in alignment with my values? Is that in alignment with my integrity?
And when you talk about this in that way, you suddenly start to realize, when you think about the people that, I mean, anyone that's listening to this, the people that you interact with, I'm thinking about a lot of my clients, you realize just how many people that haven't really kind of got engaged with what their authentic self is, right? I mean, I know we're only touching on one thing of about 10 things, but still. The other thing as well, Anmol, it's really, really difficult to have a conversation about something where you don't really want to give everything away, because I'm going to do the work, because your book was already in my Amazon shopping basket before we came on the call. And I really want other people to do so as well, because, in one of the things I read in the reviews for your book was that it has been distilled down. So you've taken all of the BS out and really made it into something people can take and practically use and follow and take action on if they have the desire to, of course. Speaking of feedback, in the feedback that you've had and the interaction that you've had with people that have, let's just say, followed your program, we'll call it the Prepping for Success method, are there any stories, or I don't want to really call them case studies because I hate that term, but are there any stories where, you've been particularly proud to hear the feedback that's come in at you, and the impact and the change that you've had on someone's life?
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I did a Zoom call, right? And I just put it out online. Hey, if you read my book, hop on the Zoom call. We're going to talk about integrity and how to keep your word. And a lot of people came to that, and people were describing all sorts of things that they want to do. Some regarding health, some regarding finances, some with relationships. And the framework that I always give them is, if you have a break in integrity, which we all will at some point or the other, right? We're not perfect. I'm not perfect. Even I might sometimes, slip up and say something that I really don't mean because I'm trying to be polite. Yeah. But, the thing is, when you have a break in integrity, when you said you're going to do something and you didn't, rather than apologizing for it or saying, oh, I'm not going to do it again, because you are going to do it again, right? You have to put things in place to ensure it doesn't happen again. So, the stories that I give all the time is when people come, oh, I wanted to, start this new business from Monday. And then next Monday comes, we're hopping on a Zoom call and like, hey, how's that going? They're like, oh, I haven't started it yet. I was just in the middle of something. I'll do it tomorrow. I'm like, no, what are you putting in place to ensure that doesn't happen again? Because you slipped up on Monday. How can you ensure it's not going to happen again? So they said, oh, I'm going to do these things tomorrow. I'm like, great. What time are you doing it? Right? Then putting them on the spot, they're like, oh, I haven't thought about it, probably like tomorrow evening. No, there's no probably. Like, where on your calendar can I see when you're going to start working on it? So then we start scheduling those things. All right, 3 to 4, you're going to look into this. 3 to 4, 4 to 5, you're going to register this business, have a domain, do all of that. 5 to 6, you're going to find a developer, right? And start building this thing out. So now, after they schedule those things, 2, 3, 4, 5 months later, when we do another follow-up Zoom call, and then they're like, yeah, it's going great. I started it. Everything's scheduled. And now they're starting. Otherwise, previously, they've been procrastinating for many, many years. And I did the same thing for my health, right? I was just like, in a phase where I was making money. I was living the dream. I was going to Dubai, London, partying, having a good time. And my health was kind of all over the place. It was just a mess. So, and I used to say that to myself, oh, I'll start from Monday, and then Monday comes, but it's like the 28th of the month. So you're like, oh, I'll start from the first, you know, then it's
Yeah.
like, it's December. We'll just start from next year. And you just keep pushing the buck forward. And
Yeah.
then that's when I realized, okay, that's a lack of integrity. So what am I putting in place to ensure it doesn't happen again? Great. I got a trainer. He's going to come every day, 12 o'clock. We're going to work out. There's no ifs and buts, 5 days a week. Right. And I'm going to get a chef. He's going to come prepare all the meals for me. I'm going to eat from there. Now I'll put things in place to ensure those things don't happen again. So that's what people need to do, is put things in place to ensure it doesn't happen again. There's no apologizing. There's no pushing the buck forward. I'll do it tomorrow. Put something in place today.
And if anyone's got any doubt over what Anmol's saying, all you've got to do is go to his Instagram, because I didn't recognize you when you came on the call.
Yeah.
Because you're still posting stuff from when you were bigger, right?
Yeah.
And you look the absolute picture of health. But that's why I said earlier, you look like someone who's absolutely got his shit together and is walking his talk. Books out, going well?
Yeah, books are going really, really well. The audio version actually is coming out on Audible in a couple of weeks.
Oh, fantastic. I'm going to get that one as well. What's next?
What's next? For me, it's just scaling my trading, right? I'm an active trader every day. That's primarily how I make my income. So scaling it further, taking it to whatever level I can take it. And the good thing about trading is like, it's so scalable. You're never going to hit your limit, right? You're never going to hit it. So it's every year is just a little bit more. You keep working. So I'm just working on that and working on live traders where we coach and train other traders. And those are the two big focuses. I mean, I have startup companies that I'm involved in. I have properties in India, we have for Airbnbs and stuff. But for passion, like trading, stock market, teaching people, coaching people, that's my passion.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm working on.
That's fantastic. I honestly cannot wait to get into that. And the fact that, because I learned recently from a recent guest in terms of the way that we learn, and I've started doing it, is I'll read and listen to the audio at the same time, which seems to help me retain a lot more information. But apparently there's been studies done that show that to be true. So I can't wait to do that. For people to connect with you, obviously they can go to your website. I'll put the links in the show notes. So preppingforsuccess.com. They can find you on Instagram and on LinkedIn, all the usual places. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I'm the most active on Twitter and Instagram. My username on both of those is Delta90, DELTANINETY. So Instagram and Twitter is the best way to touch base with me. But apart from the book, Amazon, Barnes & Noble is usually the best place to get the books. For trading, if you're interested in the stock market, then livetraders.com. That's the place to be.
Brilliant. I'll make sure I have all of those links in the show notes. Anmol, thank you so much. You've really, really impacted my thinking, and I'm sure you've done the same for so many people listening to this episode today.
That was great chatting with you.
No, you've been an absolute delight. And you know what? That is genuinely what unbalanced me when you came on the call, because I was expecting Anmol bigger. How much weight did you lose going through that journey?
I'm not sure. I don't keep a track of it. I just look at the mirror. I'm like, okay, it's getting better or not, Yeah. So I try not to look at the pluses or minuses.
I like that. Yeah, because you can get too obsessed with that stuff. You look amazing, really. So whatever you're doing, I'm sure you're going to keep doing it. You don't need me to tell you, but you look absolutely fantastic.
My trainer is on his way right now. In 30 minutes, he'll be here. So
brilliant.
We'll be working out.
I want to give you time to just kind of chill for a bit and relax before your session. So thank you again. Thank you all so much for joining Anmol and I on this episode. Don't forget, Tailoring Talk is on Instagram at Tailoring Talk Podcast. You know I love feedback, so you can email me at the usual place. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review. And make sure you click the share button in your player to send this episode on to people you know who might get some help or be inspired by what Anmol shared with us today. And if you're enjoying Tailoring Talk, you can support the show. Links in the show notes. Have a great week. Be good to each other. And I'll see you on the next one.